Excellent, excellent. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for coming in bright and early. Please just drop your name if you haven't already and let us know where you are joining from. Thank you for being here this evening, and a very welcome to you all. Your names and where you are joining from. So, as many of you know, my name is Audrey Joe-Ezigbo, and in my professional life, I'm an energy person. I'm in the gas business. And so you may be wondering what has gas got to do with the end game, right? But we're multidimensional people. And so I'm here today as the Impactoneer, which is an assignment that God has given me to create value and impact in the lives of men and women. But this is not the time to do a drill down on what that assignment is. Safe to say that the Endgame program is a big part of me working out God's mandate for my life and for the lives of those of you who are connected, those of us who are between 40 and 60, and even people who are slightly younger and older that just want to do more with their lives and be the very best and most profitable expressions of themselves. So today we are in our second webinar under the Now for Next series, which is one of the programs under the Endgame. And what we do here is to try to position you now to make sure that you have what we call warm winters, a situation where as you're older, in your latter years, you are relevant, you are creating value, you are dispensing value, you continue to be highly sought after. Now, our last webinar was absolutely phenomenal. For those who missed it, I would encourage you to go to my platforms on Facebook, on Instagram, and in my YouTube channel and go and watch very valuable tips that we shared that day. Today, we're looking at the digital world, and we're speaking up to the theme, Never Too Late, Digital Inclusion for Seniors. Somebody posted on Instagram and she says, I'm not a senior, I'm just a little over 40. And I laughed and I said, well, that's your perspective. The truth is that time flies. And if we're not careful, we don't realize where the decades, and I didn't say years, I said the decades go. But the world is also changing quite rapidly. And what that means is that we must be very intentional about our own level of adaptability so that we're able to embrace those changes full on. So today we're going to be talking about some of the things that we, as those who are getting older, whether you call yourself senior or not, need to be looking at to make sure that we are ready for the world that we are in and the world that is evolving. So I'm going to bring on board my my dear sister and coach traveler, Mrs. Inyang Samuel. Some of you know her as the retirement queen. Inyang, so good to see you. Welcome, sis.
Thank you,
welcome,
sis. Nice to be here.
Welcome. Yes.
Thank you.
So, just to kick off before we get into the meat of the program, there are a couple of things that I just remembered. You know how when we were younger, it seemed as though our parents didn't know how to do anything more than put on the TV, and it had to be set to their specific channel. If they needed to do anything else, they're going to shout your name to have you come from downstairs just to do something else, right? And I remember them being totally confused by the time we started to have like picture-in-picture type of screens, or trying to navigate between YouTube and Netflix or DSTV. It always was some kind of a project. But here's the irony that I suddenly find myself, not me necessarily, but in circles where I'm seeing the same thing now happening amongst my peers or people who are slightly older. So we have kind of become the parents, right? So I don't know what your thoughts are around this, because this is really what I don't want to be. I remember how we would laugh. It was so funny. And the word where you say you were deshined.
Oh my God, I can't remember that. You just remembered that line.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts around the digital issues around digital inclusion, especially getting old? I mean, you are someone who has, retired once and refired and restarted again. And you're the retirement planning queen. You're always engaging with communities. So maybe what are some of the things that you just see that you think can spark off a conversation before we bring DBC on board?
Okay, so I feel that our lives, whether social, leisure, medical, business, whatever it is, it's practically moved online, and if one is not there, then you are obviously missing out on a lot. I get what you're saying about your parents. I was there. I was on on the edge of that a bit myself, considering that I guess you and I are not even in the same age bracket quite like
Mm-hmm.
that. But
Mm-hmm.
I quickly had to speak to myself to come out of it, because the truth is the world is evolving so fast,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized that if one allowed any gap, then what then happens is that, fear won't even allow you to then proceed, because I have some of my age mates are in that place. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they think that, oh, I'm way too fly, how am I doing it? But the truth is that I just saw that I had no option, because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to be that mom of bringing remote control and all that. I was almost there. I remember when my last born was leaving home, to college.
Yeah.
And, I asked him to show me some things, I think on the computer or something. And he was like, he said, look, Mama, I better learn it, because I won't be here for for the next time you ask me. And it was so true. I've had to
Excellent.
learn so much. I mean, Audrey, you have been
Right.
there for me as well. So yeah, it's not
Right.
been easy, but
Thanks.
it's
Yeah.
a
So,
must do.
mm-hmm. This is an excellent point, but I don't want us to take the meat of the conversation away from the person who is the expert
Mm,
and who is also of a different generation, because that's also important.
thank
And that's one thing I want to put out to everyone who is listening, that we must be ready to learn across generations so
yeah.
that we have the capacity to be as independent as is possible in the world that we're in.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
love tech. That I'm always playing with technology. I'm happy to teach as much as I'm happy to ask questions to be taught. And literally, you are so right. I don't want to become that mom who just can't even call an Uber. But let's not go there. I want to quickly bring on board. I want to bring on board our speaker for today, and that is DBC. DBC, you're very welcome. I'm bringing you onto the stream. Excellent. Thank you so much. Debussy, I think that if you would just take a couple of minutes and tell us about yourself, just in 2 minutes, and then we can quickly jump into what we want to talk today. Yes, I see a comment from BC that you love the diversity, generational diversity. My sister, this is our reality. If you get
Yeah.
too anchored in your generation, there are two things that happen. One is that you miss the wisdom of those ahead of you. And then second is that you miss the wisdom of those coming behind. They are the ones who help you, position for the future. All right, Debussy, please go ahead and tell us very quickly about yourself, quickly.
Thank you very much. I hope everyone can hear me easily and clearly.
Yes, we
Mhm.
Yes.
can.
Great. So my name is DBC. Um, just for context, I've worked in social media and digital technology for the last, I want to say, 7, 8 years. Um, and it's important that you understand that it's not because I was also just a generally sociable person and I
Mm,
just loved social media initially. It was because I saw it as a tool. Even just initially, I saw it as a tool. And when I go back to my just the initial Facebook days, I'm bad with birthdays. So I needed to just even get a notification when it was somebody's birthday. And Facebook was the easiest thing to do it through, and it was so helpful. And then going into general marketing, first of all, I was in experiential marketing, which is the face-to-face marketing. I know some people think of like the dancers in the markets and whatnot, but for me, it was just how do you create that connection, and is there a way to replicate it otherwise?
mm.
And that's what led me to social media and digital marketing in general. So
Okay.
I've worked in that field for a long time. I am particularly concerned about bringing as much people on board as possible. I think the age group we're talking about now is a particular passion point of mine, because first of all, I don't feel too far off. And
Debussy, don't go there. Oh. Don't go there.
no, I don't feel too far off.
Anyhow,
Um,
you know what? I'm sorry to cut you off. I just remembered something, and I think it will be important for us to do this, as early as we can
yeah.
in this webinar. So first of all, is that the audience, I want to ask you to please cooperate with us. Right, we want to do a very short poll, and
Right.
that means that you're going to have to go to what's it called? You're going to have to go to Menti. I'm going to copy the link, or no, I'm going to share the screen, and then you can please go to menti.com and type in the code, and let's just kind of ask ourselves this question around what it is that we do with. Yeah, let me share it first, and then you see the question. Please confirm you can see the screen, just for us to
Yes,
get
we
a
can.
sense of what it is that we're doing. So if you look at the screen, you can see at the top menti.com, menti.com. If you please take your devices, go there and put in the code that is at the top of the screen, the numbers 45348540. The numbers at the top of the screen, menti.com, and please vote. You're allowed to do, I think we want to just know your top 3 reasons why you're on the internet, right? So if you can just take 3 minutes and get this done, it will set some context for some of the things that we want to discuss in the course of today's webinar.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm not seeing any votes yet. So I assume oh, excellent. They're coming in, menti.com, menti.com. Thank you. Let's keep them coming in. So, Sister Young, please check for the comments if anyone is having difficulty. I'm sharing screen, so I don't want to exit this screen. Yes.
Okay, so the code
you.
is 45348540.
Right.
Somebody
Thank
says the
you.
numbers are blurry, so they can't see. So I'm saying
Oh, I see. Apologies for that. 45.
Yeah.
You can actually type it in the comment.
That's what I want to do now. 4534.
Right. So far, it's looking like a lot of
5.
people to find information and research, staying in touch with family, keeping up with news. So not too many of us are watching videos and movies, right? A lot of research oriented. Excellent. Thank you. Please, let's keep it going. We will do this for another minute or so.
And I'm not surprised at these results.
Yes, I think it's reflecting.
Please be truthful. Just watching videos is okay too.
It's okay to watch videos, right? It's not a sin. Thank you for that. You're so right. You're so right. That we have to just, these are, it's not showing who said what. It's all just, excellent. Yeah, so we're still in that place of largely research, information, staying on top of news, family and friends. Excellent. So I'm going to stop the sharing, but you can go on and continue to vote, and we would come back. We can share the results a little later, right? We can share that a little later. Thank you for your cooperation. All right, so we come back to the conversation, Debussy, and I want to now actually, begin to ask you a couple of questions. So you are not 20, no, right? But we are older. When you look at, like you said, you're not too far from the generation. When you look at the 40 to 60 and slightly above, what are the kinds of trends that you are seeing, right? That you think when it comes to the internet, what are your perspectives around the older generation? Can you share with us?
Of course. So I think if you've just been on the internet, you're quick to put yourself in buckets. There's Gen Z, baby boomers, millennials, there are these terms. But the truth is, we're all kind of fluid in between those buckets, and also our comfortability is also a different thing entirely. In terms of actual trends that are happening generally with an older audience, is that it is no longer as far-flung between what's happening with the younger people, and I'm talking people from maybe 16 and up to people that are 40 and up. It's no longer that varied. First of all, obviously the fact that a lot of people have grown up with the internet at this point, but there's also the fact that there's an attraction to the use of the internet, even generally from people that didn't grow up with it. So it's no longer a case of the people that are young are over there and then the people that are older are over there. It's coming together quite a bit. I think the disparity is a bit more in terms of adoption. So a very young audience, they just want the new thing. They're early adopters. They want to be part of that first people that went to that app or that platform. And I think we saw it a bit over like the pandemic where there are things like house party, new things that were coming up. Zoom, a lot of people hadn't used Zoom, house party, Clubhouse, new things are happening. The young people get onto it quite early, then maybe figure out that that's not for them. But what usually happens is that for an older audience, they will find maybe whether a professional use for it or a personal use for it, and they will be loyalists in terms of, okay, I like what this is offering, and it makes sense to me to keep using this going forward. So okay. I think that in terms of the clear dynamic that's happening, that's a big thing.
Okay, so the reality is that we are all using tech. The older ones tend to filter, what I hear is we tend to filter a bit more in terms of what is relevant. And I think in alignment with some of the results that we were seeing, it's a lot for us around our work, business, information, our careers, that research around there, keeping up to date with the news and things like that, right? Whereas it seems to me like the younger ones may be, incorporating a whole lot more lifestyle technologies. They're perhaps more adaptable to those kinds of things. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay.
But I think the thing to add in the thing to bring up just as well is that when we think about these tech companies, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, even Zoom, for instance, they want the older people as well. They want the people that, first of all,
we're the ones that campaign now. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. Manpower. The young people don't have money, so they will do anything that's free. Us and older, because there's a consideration of convenience and even we actually want to use this and want the fullest possibilities of this, we're going to pay. So even these platforms know that if we want to attract the younger people because they will just even promote it, but we also want an older audience that will use it consistently and actually pay for additional services. And,
okay, so I hear you, and I totally agree. I think I personally think there are two things. So like you said, we will pay for the value that we perceive, right? But at the same time, I think we also finance the younger ones in a sense. So if we're totally disconnected, we will not appreciate what we're paying for. So there's that. But I'm just thinking, and I want to ask again for everyone listening to please, I promise you, this is the last poll we're doing, just to test a bit, because there are so many things that are coming up. Everywhere you turn, there's a new app. We've all heard the expression, there's an app for an app. So technology is evolving rapidly. And we are not always at that level where we even know that they're evolving. The other day, my son and I were sitting beside each other, and he was showing me something on his phone, and a text came in, a chat. It was from some platform called, I think, Spark. Honestly, it may have been there for 10 years, but I didn't know about it. Immediately I saw it. You can trust me. I was on Google. What is Spark? But some of us don't even know anything beyond WhatsApp. Anyway, I want us to just do a very quick poll, and it's the last one, to test when you see the question, allow me to show it, and then please let us then have this conversation around something that I want to ask next. Just give me a minute.
I'll just add to that, and that's there are now very new considerations, even for people of my generation. Cryptocurrency, NFTs, artificial intelligence is common. They're day-to-day conversations, and in terms of even how we use them, it's a thing as well. But you don't have to be on everything, but at least have some understanding as to what's happening initially.
Okay. Thank you. So this is our second poll. Sorry for all the back and forth. And the question is, what do you feel? How do you feel when you think about your adaptability to the pace of all these technological evolutions? Again, I promised last poll, but please go to menti.com. The number is 8719354.
Yes.
So when you think about how much tech is affecting every part of life, do you feel scared? Are you a bit anxious? And remember, we're thinking about this from the perspective of the fact that we're getting older, and it's about our own capacity to embrace all these things and not be lost. Do you feel a bit uncertain? Are you quite confident about your level of adaptability? Or are you just neutral, like, anyhow, my children will do it for me? So let's see. All right, so I'm seeing about half and half, 50% confident, 50% uncertain.
Uncertain, yes.
Okay.
Confidence is dropping.
Please, let's be real. Nobody can see your vote, right? Yes. Thank you. Let's keep them coming in. I'm happy no one is scared, and I'm happy nobody is hyperventilating. All right, excellent. Some people are anxious. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Some people are neutral. Yes, some people are neutral. Among the neutrals will be some people who, my friend, I've trained my children so that they can handle my remote control and work for me. Excellent. All right, let's keep the votes coming. So the thing that we can see clearly is that there is a level of anxiety, though is balancing out nicely. This is nice to see. More people are confident. It would have been nice. Maybe we should have done this in a way that we can also see the age grades, because maybe those who are more confident are probably closer to 40. I suspect. Right? I suspect. All right, let's keep them coming so that we can share a little later. But I want to really speak to a certain demographic as we are seeing it now. DBC, I'm going to stop sharing here, but please let's keep voting if we can. So we are seeing a total of 48% so far, right? 48% that are feeling a combination of anxious and uncertain. Right? A combination of anxious and uncertain. And DBC, I'm just wondering, like, why would you think like older people are anxious and uncertain around technology?
I think it speaks to a very particular human thing, especially as you grow older. What you want is to approach anything with dignity and respectability. At your grown age, you don't want to be looking like you're fumbling or you're knowledgeable about something, or you have to rely on somebody else to give you information or help you through. And that's natural. I think that's a very natural thing to be. I think what younger people have the luxury of is the risk it all. Let's try. Let's see what happens. But when you get to a certain age or a certain life stage, you want to be able to be clear about who you are, and you don't want to feel that some things are past you or some things you do not understand. But the truth is, again, first of all, with technology, it's supposed to bring everybody together. Everybody's supposed to find their own lane and space in that. You don't have to do exactly what the young people are doing, but you have to find your own way in that as well. And secondly, it's going to happen regardless of you. So even if you don't have a full understanding, and few people do have a full understanding of everything,
Right.
be willing to try. Be willing to understand a little bit and try, and then see what works for you in particular. Yes.
So I hear you. I think about that comment around not wanting to be uncertain. I think about it more from the point of view of, imagine that there is a bus speeding towards you and you were crossing the road, right? And
Right.
then you stop. Now that bus is coming. And so tech is happening. At some point now, everything, our devices are smarter in so many ways, and like you can do everything on your phone or on a gadget you're wearing. So we must be able to move out of the way so that we don't get run over, right? So that's the way that I see it. So it's not about being anxious and uncertain. It's really thinking about, where are the places that tech is enabling life, and what should we be looking out from there? So my question to you is, when you think about some of the key areas that we have now, a situation where like it's day to day, but we have to adopt some. I mean, the digital world is relevant in those spaces. So what are some of those things that we should be paying attention to?
I think that's a great question, and I think we have to think of it in terms of both personal and professional, in terms of how these different buckets fit into our lives now. I just list a few things I have in mind, but I'm sure there are a bunch of other things that maybe the other people in the session can help us with. So the first one for me is travel and transportation. It has been circumvented fully, and I'll get into it a little deeper later. The other thing is finance and business. How we just even keep track of anything that we're doing. Health is a big thing, especially as you grow older. What are the concerns? What are the things you're looking for, and how can digital help that? Brand building, big one as well. Whether as a personal brand, and especially if you've reached an age where people know you for a certain thing, how can you build that and whatnot? And then entertainment, we cannot ever underestimate entertainment in terms of what do we enjoy and how can we use digital to enhance that experience. And then lastly, I'll say communication. That's a bit of a given, but I think it's important as well that how do we connect with the people that we want to connect with, or people that we already know, how do we maintain that relationship?
Right. Okay, so let's do a deep dive, because that's really the essence of today, the real reason we're here now. We've talked about these different areas. We know we're literally in it, right? So let's take something like traveling. The whole traveling space, I mean, it's something else. Chichi says religion even. Maybe we won't go there today, perhaps. But it's real. It's real. It is real, right?
Yeah.
So let's start with this. The travel. I mean, travel is something else today. You can't, if you're not digitally savvy, how do you move around in today's world?
That's a very great question, because first of all, in fact, I want to just even use this moment to give an example. My auntie was recently traveling, and there are definitely stages to which the travel experience had changed. So before you go to a travel agency, you buy a ticket, you speak to someone, they give you, it's a paper thing, you take it you go to the airport, you talk to somebody, they print out a boarding pass for you, tell you where the gate is, you go there. situation has changed entirely.
Mm.
Even how you initially get the tickets in terms of going to websites to look for different things. And it's a good thing because now you have price comparisons. You can check, oh, this site's give me this price, this site's give me this price.
Mm-hmm.
What can I use? This how I can get better deal. This how I can get discounts if I have certain things going on. Based on that, you can buy a ticket. Obviously, the online payments part of that. Then you go to the airport, or even before you get to the airport, they're asking you check in before you go in. You have certain amount of luggage, you check in. Oh, I have 2 luggages. Obviously, they have given you the weight limit. I know Nigerians, we have a different thing with weight limits, but let's assume that you're just sticking to what it is. These days, when you go to a lot of airports, you're not even interacting with anybody.
Right.
It's a faceless transaction. You're not going to a desk to talk to a young lady or a young man to say, book me in. You go to a thing with a screen, you put in where you're putting in, you put your passport in, they'll scan it, you put your luggage to be weighed in, it will give you an exact number. If you have to do additional things, it will tell you, and then it will tell you your gate. That can be very disconcerting for somebody who has done something for a long time in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad thing, because there are issues with even just doing it the face-to-face way anyway.
Right.
Embrace it.
So I'm wondering, DBC, I mean, this is for those of us that do travel, and even for Nigeria, I mean, so this is our base. I know people are joining from all over the world, but for those of us in Nigeria and from whatever country may not have the facilities now, we're expecting those kinds of improvements to come into place, right? We see, for instance, because when we talk transport and travel, it's not only international travel, even domestic travel. So I know, for instance, that there are some people, look, they cannot call an Uber.
And
They
yeah,
can't.
that's a clear
Now,
thing. Yeah.
imagine if you go, I'm just trying to build on, let's even say I saw one a comment that somebody had to ask someone to help them check in or something like that. Imagine you went to a country and you don't even know how to move around. So it's a quality of life issue as I see it now.
Yes.
Right? So that's why I was asking about the issues around why are we not embracing it? Is it that you talked about dignity, and I'm thinking, so we don't want to ask so that we don't look like we don't know, but we actually then don't know, and we actually then end up embarrassing ourselves as a result. When they start calling you mommy, there's a problem. And daddy. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So somebody says she's feeling attacked. BC, please calm down. No. Emily is saying even bathrooms. You're right. So we're getting to places where you don't see any tap, you don't see anything. So this is the reality that it's evolving, and we must be mindful. All right. When you think about accommodation, I mean, you know how it is, booking hotels and the rest.
Yeah.
We're looking for a secretary to do it. When you see the ENDGAME platform is trying to equip you for when you're no more working. For instance, if you no longer have a secretary to tell to make a ticket reservation and also book a hotel for you, what are you going to do? Does it mean you won't move around anymore? Mm-hmm. If your children live abroad, what are you going to do? All right. So please let us just see how we embrace this. So let's talk about, I'm mindful of our time. Let's go into the entertainment sector, because before we do entertainment, I love the fact that you mentioned brand building. I think that's a good place to talk about, because for those of us who are professionals that have spent our lives and are still spending in our workplaces, we have all this experience, and a lot of us, I believe most of us, want to make impact. Technology has created a phenomenal platform to begin to take off the wealth of your experiences and put them out there to build capacity in other people, right?
Absolutely.
But are we able to do that? Sometimes we don't have the skills. So I want you to speak to that from a brand building point of view in terms of both your personal and professional development and making impact.
Okay. Yes. So what I will definitely say is for brand building, whether you're trying to do it for yourself or for maybe your second career or your second wave in terms of
Mhm.
whatever you start after maybe whatever you worked on for a long time. It's about consistency, and just making that establishment clear. Once you establish something or you do the initial setup, it's usually a thing about consistency or frequency from there. And I
Mhm.
think from anybody that's worked on anything, you understand that that's just a thing that happens. Um, you want to be able to establish yourself on social media.
Mhm.
Um, and again, you don't have to do everything. You don't have to now start dancing or doing skits. You don't have to be funny all of a sudden, but you want to be consistent in terms of what your messaging is about. And
So
that
you know
goes
what?
back.
I want to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but I'm going to interrupt you because I think you're taking it to the next level. What I even want to understand is, if you are an older person, I had seen some comments earlier, somebody saying, I do TikTok, I do this, I do that.
Mhm.
How do we even know what is out there?
Hmm.
Because I think that is the main thing. I have to first know it before I go there. Ian, you always talk about this thing when people say social media. I mean, they can't even pronounce it, right? That sense that Instagram is for children or TikTok is for nonsense content. There are all these funny things we adopt and we're closing the gates. And I mean, these are even the more popular ones. I think there's so many other things. So how do we you know, if I'm thinking about my brand, let's even say professional, which I think most people are comfortable with, right? How do we know what is out there and what we should be doing so that we stay connected?
Right. So first of all, a lot of the main social media space hasn't changed as much as people think.
Mm,
And if you've heard of something, it is just an additional thing. So for most of us, we understand it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Um, Now there's TikTok. Now there's Snapchat. But for the most part, the understanding is that there's still some main platforms.
mm,
But there's also a thing of trying, and I think I'm definitely the type to encourage it, especially if you have a brand that hasn't been exposed in that space yet.
mm.
Try it. It might not be for you, but you learn that it's not for you very quickly.
Okay, so let me
And
ask them because I see who has posted this. BC is asking, and this maybe we should ask some of these questions, right? Please, if you have a question, put it in the comment. Do you think that there are age appropriate platforms, or is it sometimes just a mental construct?
it is not age appropriate, it is product appropriate. What are
Uh-huh.
you actually selling?
Wow.
What is your service? What is your business? What is your product? It doesn't matter that you are a particular age. If you make a certain thing, you make a certain thing, and it can appeal to a particular audience.
Mm,
And that should now be the what guides what you do.
mm,
Um, and then obviously the platforms you put it on. So even as an older person, there's food. If you maybe you're making food or you go to a restaurant, there's a way that can appeal to a younger person. That is also because that's a bit more universal than your age. If you do a particular service or you make certain kinds of products, it can still be tailored towards a different audience than you, and that will now dictate what platforms you use versus
mm-hmm,
you saying, "Oh, I am whatever age, and I must definitely is the only LinkedIn I can do."
mm-hmm,
No, it
mm-hmm,
shouldn't be that. It should be
mm-hmm,
based on exactly what you're doing and how you're thinking about marketing that and the audience you think you're marketing that to.
Okay, so let me say I just saw a comment. I think I had highlighted it some minutes ago from Hilda, and Hilda is asking, is that you must be selling something to determine the platform. So here's the way I'm hearing it, and maybe Davis, you can shed light. My perspective is that we're always selling in quotes, and selling, I'm using that word loosely to say we're always trying to communicate the essence of something. It may
Right.
be a product, it may be a service, it may be knowledge and information. So when we're talking
Yeah.
of selling, is that art of creating a communication, a link, a buy-in with the people you're channeling a message to, and not necessarily that is a product or service. All right. If I decide, for instance, I'm very big on corporate governance. Everybody knows that. I'm always talking about how to build ethical businesses and so on. It's a message I'm selling. I want
Mm.
people to buy that and internalize it. So I have to be able to think, is what you're saying, about what are the kinds of appropriate platforms that I should use for that. And in fact, you're actually challenging my thinking because I realize I'm selling, in quotes, this message about building good businesses that are well governed, well run, ethical, godly. I'm talking about them on the platforms which perhaps my age mates are largely in. But if I'm really, I'm just looking at it now, I'm thinking, if I'm really committed to building this ecosystem of people who are ethical and committed to building institutions that transcend generations, then I should be talking to generations. So perhaps you need to now be seeing me on TikTok and Snapchat and any other platform where younger people tend to be, so that I'm catching
Mm.
the younger entrepreneurs earlier. How about that? Right? That's what I'm hearing. DBC?
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I absolutely agree. And I think maybe I think we should also realize what the word, one of the key words is building. It starts from
Mm-hmm.
somewhere, it ends somewhere. You don't need to initially have everything you have going on. You don't initially have to get the immediate audience you get, but you build
Mm-hmm.
by establishing yourself, putting content out, or putting information about what you're trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
attract things. If it's also a personal brand, it can also just be about establishing,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
this is who I am, this is what I care about, this is what I have knowledge on or expertise on, and then I have a service for you.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have a product for you. But
Okay.
it helps that there's the backstory of who you are and what you've done and how you built that to a particular place.
Okay. So the central thing in this talking now about the brand is to say we are people who have spent and will be spending decades building capacity. And we should also then reach backwards to try to enable others by sharing of ourselves, along the line across our peers and, of course, the generations coming. And the technology space gives us the platforms to do that. And we have the
Mm.
ability to disseminate more of that value we carry by being aware what these platforms are and looking at for the ones that are product, service, message specific, or appropriate, I should say, rather than
Mm.
thinking about it from just an age point of view and closing yourself out across the generations. So that's what I'm hearing, that we have to be thinking through. And then, of course, when you now understand that, stepping back to decide, how can I do this? Right? So we can't be afraid of Instagram. We can't be afraid of Facebook. And somebody said Facebook is getting an unnecessary bashing, but it's okay. Right? Okay, so let's come to
Do not
finance.
underestimate Facebook.
Yes,
Never
yes.
underestimate Facebook.
Sorry?
Do not underestimate Facebook. Never.
Exactly. Exactly. It was how we use it. And I think this is the thing about technology, is how we use it. So when we're talking about brands, it's also about how are we using the platforms, right? Okay, but let's come to finances, because I know somebody had said something about how a lot of people don't even know how to do simple transactions on their phones.
Mm.
And I personally see a time when we may not have brick and mortar banks, except perhaps catering to some very high net worth luxury people. The world is changing. it has already changed significantly. So what are your thoughts around tech and the digital space, especially for those of us who are getting older?
When it comes to banking, I never want to enter a bank. I never want to actually
Likewise.
enter. I never want to have to enter a physical space, and I'll avoid it at all costs. And I think the banks know that as well. They understand that a lot can happen outside of them. If you're still hoping that you are going there and you see that person that you know, and the person is now doing the transaction for you, that person is also at some point obsolete, because the bank won't keep that kind of person there much longer.
Mm-hmm.
Or they want you to use these apps. They want the ability for you to download it and do as much transactions as you can. Because if you have to wait to go to a physical space, you only do limited stuff. But if you can do it from your home, on the go, you do a gamut of different things entirely. And so it's a very conscious thing to be aware of. And it's not only for banks, because a lot of us have, investment things going on, or at least we want to have investment things going on. These investment platforms, they have their apps as well. Pension has an app as well. Track it. Keep track of what's coming in, what's changing, and also, because it also gives you a clear timeline as to exactly what is coming in, what's coming out, and what can happen in the near future as well.
Right. Right. So I'm thinking, we're having a lot of scamming happening now.
Yes.
So when you have, you're still banking in the traditional way, and then people are calling you, and or sending you text messages, and you are clicking on things. I think those apps they add another layer of security, because most of the time, this is my thinking, right? You have your strong passwords, which of course I hope we know has to be very strong. You have to make sure you're covering both parts of your keyboard. I mean, it has to be hard for anyone to simulate, right? And then a lot of us are now using our digital fingerprints, so biometric sign-ons. So it's kind of easier for you to secure your transactions with some of these technologies that are there than just those one-on-one interactions. That's the way I see it. But I think also just preparing ourselves for a time when possibly, if you do have to go to a bank, it becomes a long trip because you just don't have many of these branches around. But why then do you think that a lot of people, older people especially, just shy away from embracing online banking and using some of these apps?
Well, just speaking to your conversation about, at least what you mentioned around security and safety and all that, it is nobody's fault. The scammers are trying to scam, so they're trying to also be better at scamming. They get things that look legit. Their messaging is clear. I've been in this industry long enough to have seen when I'll get emails from scammers with typos and funny things. Now they have logo, they have the naming is clear. Like they're so they try to be as legitimate as possible or appear that way. I think for anybody, and this is regardless of age, what you want to be able to do is, once you know this is the mode of accessing my accounts and my information, that is the only mode. Obviously, when you get to the bank, they can tell you some different things. But the problem is, somebody will call you tomorrow and tell you some information that sounds legit and whatnot. Stick to what you understand. If you're not sure, don't do it. There's no reason. If they are pressuring, don't do it. It will never be that serious.
Right. I think this is very important. So just speaking generally rather, one of the things that tends to happen as we get older is that we must also be paying attention to the evolution of scamming.
Yes.
And scamming is not only about these ones that click, and it's about the ones that also come and try to sell you some bogus business ideas, and sometimes it is the same technology, a lot of fantastic PowerPoints, a lot of slides and graphics, and a lot of fast talking. And before you know it, you've taken your hard-earned savings and put into something. So even the ability to have some of the skills that allow you to filter a few things, right? I think it's just important for us to be paying attention to this. You talked about investments, for instance, securing your investments, looking at the investment platforms, even doing the due diligence on the ones you go to, and then using the tech that they have available, right? To then
Yes.
engage with your investments on those platforms, because we can't also afford, as we get older, to lose the resources that we've built up. Okay.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's fine. So let's touch on something else, and that's, I think, health. This is very important as well for us as we begin to get older. So can you speak to that in terms of how technology is also playing out in that space and what we need to be doing to embrace that as we go further?
Yeah. With health, as much as it can extend to the professional and the business aspect of what you do, it is still a very personal thing. But it starts from the personal and then extends.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think, are you still there, David? Okay, we lost your
yes,
your
yeah,
video. Okay, please go ahead.
Yes,
go ahead.
we can.
We can hear you, even though we lost your video. Please go ahead.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
As you go older, obviously, just even the conversations around how you exercise, your nutrition, your health, the checks that are happening, these are things you have to enable digital to help you do.
Mm-hmm.
What is a concern for you, especially as you grow older, in terms of your weight, whether it's your weight, whether it's blood, your hypertension, blood sugar level. These are things that a lot of technology helps you do now very easily,
Mm-hmm.
even without going to an actual hospital to track anything or before they give you anything.
Right.
Not saying if you have an actual health issue, you shouldn't go to a particular place. But if you are concerned about your own thing, there are ways you can also keep track before it even gets to a level
Mm-hmm.
that you have to go somewhere.
Right.
So exercising, the apps, things around meditation, if you need that, things around sleep tracking, sleep.
Which is very key as we get
Very
older. Yes.
but the problem is that sometimes it happens late. At this point, I need to keep track of sleep before I get to that point where it is too late.
That's right. So let me give an example just for us. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us know this, but just to put it into context. I remember that the last time my husband and I traveled, and he had forgotten his medication.
Mm-hmm.
And so we needed to get, obviously, you want your prescription. So it's a hospital to hospital connect across continents. And at the same time, though, you need it's very hard to get a physical consult. But there are online medical platforms where you can, in your house, you go online, you book a consultation with a doctor. It was a video call, finish the conversation, made a prescription, and then nothing was sent to you. It was sent to the pharmacy. You go there, you collect it. I mean, look at these kinds of things. And this is even just one small case. During COVID, a lot of the medical care was delivered virtually, but some people couldn't access it because they couldn't. I remember even, during COVID, when, like here in Canada, for instance, they would ask you to put on your video and show yourself administering the test.
Yes.
For instance, a lot of people couldn't do that because they don't know how to even click on this, click on that, click on the other one. It doesn't make sense, right? I also feel that, because I saw somebody talking about tracking your numbers, very important. So if you are monitoring your blood sugar, for instance, you need to know that you don't have to go to your pharmacy every day and sit down for them to do that. You have a device where you can check it by yourself, and that device is Bluetooth enabled so that you can connect it to your laptop or your phone, and it keeps a record, which when you go to hospital, you can email to your doctor. You don't have to be saying your blood pressure. Hey, there was one time it was 100/40. No, the data will be there. So I think these are the things, examples of some of the things we're talking about in terms of embracing from a health point of view. So I'm mindful of our time. We just have a few minutes to 8, and we want to start asking questions and being able to address people's questions. There was a question, I don't see it anymore. Somebody was asking. Yes, I remember. She was saying that for those who cannot read, that the not so literate people, that how can they deal in the tech space? So what are your thoughts around this? And please, if we have any questions, we can just drop them in the comment section, please. So the not so literate people.
Okay, I think a key thing, I wasn't going to bring this up here, but a key thing that has definitely advanced quite a bit in the last few years is voice. Voice activated information, or at this point maybe even banking. Obviously I can only speak to that to a certain level, but it happens. In fact, the voice activated even search and information is quite prevalent from people younger than 13. They don't type what they're searching, they ask Siri, what is Alexa, what is what, by the way, I hope I'm not triggering anybody's Alexa and Siri. Google, what is, but that happens quite commonly. What people think is that it's some young thing, but and there's some research to back this up now, is that there are conversations about how with voice that includes people who are not obviously maybe English literate, or at least they don't write or read, because they can just say it. So I think that's
T is asking whether it will be in vernacular or in the person's dialect.
It's a real consideration, because I don't know if anybody has used Google Maps recently to actually direct them somewhere. Before, there was that voice that will say, Coco Michael. Now there's a woman that says it like Coco Michael, like she sounds like she's
That's right.
She's from us. So there is that inclusion already, because they know people use it and they want people to use it. So they'll include it. It might not happen immediately. It will happen probably gradually, but it will happen quicker than some people think. So I think that's a key thing for maybe people that are not at least literate or English literate.
Okay, I totally agree with you. So one of the devices that I use, for instance, and I'm not marketing any, but maybe I won't mention what it's called, but sometimes people ask me, because they know that I write, and they ask me like, oh, where do you find the time to write? We're as busy as you are. And I've shared with a lot of people around me the power of voice. And there are so many transcription apps now. And the beauty of those transcription apps is that they actually have the ones that now recognize the nuances in our accents. Right? So in the early days, when I tried to use several years back, transcription apps would what's it called now? They would, by the time I finish dictating, I'll be wondering whether they're speaking in tongues, because what comes out at the other end makes zero sense. But now I'm able to just pick my phone and open this app, and I'm processing an idea, and before you know it, I have an article that is ready for publishing. So this is what I always advise even those that want to write books. Don't sit down and start typing. find the app that makes sense and leverage it. Many of us have books we want to write. I know we've been thinking about it. I don't know how to write. Right, I'm too slow in typing. The technology allows you to
Yeah.
create multiple channels of impact. And I think it's really important for us to pay attention to this. So,
Yeah, and I think
yes, go ahead.
I just want to mention that it applies to health as well. So if for whatever reason there's some disability or some health issues with using your hand or using your appendages, voice works as well. You can text through voice. You can do lots of different things through voice at this point.
Excellent. That's very, very true. So now we have a question. All right, we have a question about where is it again? The threat of deep fakes and AI, the deep fakes AI. And yes, we'll come to this question, training for elders. BC, some people don't want to be called elders. Maybe you retype that question for not so young people. So there's this question from
I don't use the word. Don't use that word.
It's asking this question: the threat. What about the threat of deepfakes AI? So can you first of all put context around that? Some people may not know.
Okay.
What is that, and then what are the threats associated with it?
I'll try and give a very quick and broad description. AI technology. AI stands for artificial intelligence. How that is being applied, how that has been applied lately is in terms of content. Content can be maybe created or manipulated to include things that I didn't initially include. So AI has been around for a long time. So even I'm sure most people have smartphones, whether they're Androids or iPhones. If you take a picture right now, you can circle things you want to remove from that picture. That is AI technology. It will now remove that thing without making it look like there was anything removed. It is just that it tries to make things seamless and easy. In terms of deep fakes, I don't think it will ever be fully applied to an individual unless you're a very high I don't what's the word?
High net worth.
No, not high net worth, not about the high net worth. It's mostly about popularity and how you show your face out there. It is never usually applied towards that. It's mostly applied towards politicians. So you see some things sometimes that are relevant.
Okay. So someone else is okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
You have to do the due diligence because even without deep fakes, people were sending messages on WhatsApp that were not true. They'll clip something from somewhere, put a write-up about it, and they'll just disseminate it. That wasn't AI, that wasn't deep fake. But people were believing things. Like anything, misinformation, you have to care about even finding out what is real and what's not.
So let me ask you a question around this, DBC. You talked about this issue of disseminating. So I think that there are two issues, and I see this more with those of us who are older, and I see our children rolling their eyes many, many times because we're just posting everything. You see it forwarded multiple times, and there's no context to how true it is. But I also worry that sometimes we may be inadvertently pushing out viruses and what do they call those things now? Like, the word fails me. Like when you just click on everything you click on, there's an imprint that is left. And sometimes that even the hackers and scammers create some of those content and sensationalize it so that all you're looking at is, it was a joke or it was some sensational thing. And you're not thinking what the objective is in having this thing go viral. It may even be beyond just sharing a joke. What are your thoughts?
I think general security applies to everybody on the internet at this point. don't just click on anything because they said maybe you click this, you
Cookies.
less than members. We're past the thing of just clicking on things. We're past the thing of just accepting information. A lot of the apps we have and use, even emails, it will, as much as possible, remove some of those things. It's not, if you're deliberately now going into these things and saying accept or yes or click, that is you being a little reckless on your own part.
Okay, sorry. I mean, if I may say this, and I speak on behalf of myself and fellow retirees, because I think this is where the challenge comes in and where the suckers for these sort of situations where we are not discerning. I mean, older people are just not discerning about these things. Even these phone calls from banks, many of them still fall prey, and then of course the spam emails and all that. So I think the solution, though, to me is just educating and constantly educating them, which is what I do in the workshops that I run. But I find that their guards are usually pretty low, so they fall very easily.
So really, thank you for shedding that light, Ian, because this is exactly what the essence of today's conversation and the entire Endgame Now for Next series is about. That, it's easy to say the day, but if you're not careful, we are going to become the day. So the essence is to equip ourselves early enough so that we don't get into that, because the level of sophistication around technology is fantastic, but it also comes with, there's a good and a bad to everything. And the level of sophistication, as much as there is so much sophistication around the good, there is also a high level of sophistication, maybe higher yet, around the bad. So you can't afford to be casual. Earlier, I saw a comment where somebody said there is no neutral, and I totally agree with them. There is no neutral, right? So pardon me, sorry about that. So we have to really keep abreast. Now, there's a question from SA that what about the use of public Wi-Fi's at airports and shops and the rest? DBC?
Yeah.
Did you hear me?
So use of public Wi-Fi, right? I think best practice obviously is to use an email that you don't have to that you don't care about as much, or at least it's not a main thing for you. For the most part, you still won't. That won't be the main thing that people use to scam you. Public Wi-Fi, yes, is a bit of a problem because security and data and all that. But for the most part, they're not. What they will probably use it for is more about targeting you on certain information. What happens with public Wi-Fi, whether it's a cafe or an airport or whatnot, is that they're able to sell that to another party to target you on certain things. But if you are really concerned, for the most part, use one email you do not care about. I think it's a bit best practice for anybody. At this point, create an email. Just create an email that you use for things that are just things. Whether subscribing to a newsletter that you don't care about, or you should be able to access it, but for the most part, I think that that's where your bank information goes to, or your, any relevant correspondence between you and somebody else goes to.
Right.
You can just create an email for something else entirely.
Okay. Thank you for that. In fact, I know somebody shared with me maybe about a month ago something about how for her online banking, she doesn't use her app is on her second phone. So she doesn't use the phone that is attached to that account for the app. So there's always an interface. So if somebody tried to, how if they have your number and your BVN, they can do some certain things, right? So that is taken away by just separating that. So I thought
I do a similar thing as well too.
Sorry?
Not a different. I do a similar thing, but not my. It's not a different phone. It's just a particular email address for banking.
There you go. So that's also very, very important. All right. So I think that I'm not sure if we're seeing any more questions. While we're looking at the questions, we're just going to take a quick, less than a minute break. I just want to share something with everyone. And yeah. Okay, so sorry about that. I'm not sure why we are having that tech issue. I wanted to share a quick clip around the Endgame program. So as we're coming to the end of today's conversation, DBC, there was a comment that was put up, and somebody said that we don't even know how to use things like TikTok and all that. I think she was asking how. So if somebody knows, if somebody is interested in some of these platforms that are available, and you can use some of these things for brand building, knowledge and information, research, communication, and so on and so forth. So it's important to understand how to use those things. And I'm just wondering if you have any response. I can't find the comments, but I remember seeing that some of us don't even know how to.
With well, I can only, if we're talking about TikTok in particular, it's still the interface. If you've ever checked it out, is still based on record. There's a button, record yourself. I think the only difference with maybe TikTok or an Instagram Reels, for instance, is that what they do is allow you to record in little bits. So you say something, you can move your hand into pause. You say something, move your hand into pause again. There's some YouTube tutorials you can check out. It is not as complicated as anybody thinks. It is not. If there are some additional things you can do in terms of producing it, but most people don't do that. So I promise you, if it's simple enough for some of the people I've seen use it, it's simple enough for anybody.
Right. It is actually, so this is a good message that technology is simpler than we think.
Yes.
Earlier on, I had seen a comment, somebody had said, once, you may need to spend some time to get the hang of it, but once you begin to use it, consistency is really key. Consistency is key. And before you know it, you're able to deal with so many things very easily. All right. So somebody,
Right,
thank you for that. Yes. Yes, please, DBC.
Just to add, we've moved past the expectation of fully produced, curated content. With TikTok especially, and I'm glad that was the example, the expectation is that you just do what you're doing. They don't expect you to have fully looked a certain way and everything you're doing is looking professional. No. The expectation has moved past that. It is democratized because they want as many people as they can to use it.
Excellent point. I think that is really an excellent point, because sometimes we are focused on the shine of the final product, and we forget that the main thing, I mean, at least when I think from my perspective, and maybe think about it from the brand perspective, it's really about, do I have a message to share? Do I have something useful I want to show other people? And then just put it out there. People value what you said, not whether you were in a red dress or in things like that. Yes, BC says TikTok is spontaneity, no packaging. But I think even beyond TikTok, is that while it may be nice, I mean, I do, if you've seen my videos, I take time with my video content. But like I told you, I'm a tech person. I have people that work with me, but I also have videos I do. But if you're around me, you know that Audrey knows how to record. Audrey has her own personal studio. Audrey knows how to edit, put music, because I love tech. But some other people, you may not have the skills, you may not have the time, but the resources are out there. And so this is where I want to now begin to bring it all together to say that, listen, what we're trying to say in today's conversation is that it's never too late. That's why we themed it never too late. That even wherever you are now, if you fall into the bracket of those feeling unsure and uncertain, those feeling anxious and afraid around technology, that the reality is that you can start from now. Digital inclusion is something we can't get away from. That bus I talked about that is coming straight at us, we're actually already there on that highway, and we want to make sure that we don't become people that are so dependent on everyone for everything. The factor DBC raised around dignity, I think for me that is so key. You know how proud you are when you figured it out. I mean, all of us have had that moment when we figured it out. And it's like, now, me, I got this. I didn't need to call anyone. And we also don't want to get to where, because of pride, we are cut off of certain things just because we can't open, ourselves up to ask somebody to help us. If you have children, your children are there for this reason, to teach you and move on, not to be the one you constantly call. And I feel that people like DBC, I believe DBC, this is something that you do for groups of people, for individuals, where they can take you on as a digital coach, isn't it? Right? To be able to provide that service. So let's not be afraid to even reach out, and maybe you can drop your LinkedIn or however we can contact you in the chat so people can connect with you. Because once you've gone through it, believe me, it's not like you're going to be beholden to him all your life or to whoever you choose to go with. So I think that's very important, adaptability and so on and so forth. All right, so I just want us to now take like some last, because I'm not seeing any other questions. But I want us to, like DBC, when you think about the essence of today's session, what are the big things, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that you would want to leave anyone who has listened with? And please don't forget to share your details as well. Yeah.
Of course. Well, first thing is something I said earlier, is that technology or digital technology or the internet in general is not trying to exclude anybody.
Mm-hmm.
They make money off you guys, so nobody's asking, and nobody has more money than people that have actually made money over a lifetime. So they want your money, they want you to be able to use these things. And so as much as possible, any of these platforms that you're thinking of using, any of the platforms that you think has the audience you want to have, they want you to be able to use it as well. Whether from a personal point of view, if you need help, that's fine. And at this point, we're not going to be too big to say we don't need help sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
If you need help, have that conversation with me or someone like me, or do the due diligence of even just going on platforms that have the knowledge on these things. Mm-hmm. YouTube University is a full thing. So give yourself the grace to do that and time to understand some things, and you'll be fine. I think the second thing I would mention is you don't have to use every single thing that is available. Technology doesn't mean every single app, every single social media thing, every single device you need to be on. What do you want to do? What is relevant for you? Understand what is relevant for you, and then look at the platforms you want to be able to use, and then choose them wisely, and then invest into those platforms with your time, attention, or even money. So those are the things I would say.
Thank you, Debbie. So, when you talked about YouTube University, let me share a very practical experience. So I moved homes last year, and I moved into one of those, these days everything is fitted in, right? And guess what? Every gadget there, they somehow or the other had put the Turkish manuals. So all the English manuals were not there, except for the dishwasher. And I stood in front of my microwave. Honestly, there were so many there are no buttons. Everything is touch, 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 right? And everything you touched had I said, for the life of me, what is this? But because I have learned that there is a university in YouTube, I simply picked my phone, I went to YouTube, and I entered how to use I put the brand name and I put the number oven or microwave, sorry. Guess what? I had, in fact, too many videos to watch. By the time I watched the first one, I mastered my microwave because literally now when I mean, it's not one of those things you just press one thing and it's on. When I got to my dryer and my dishwasher, the same thing exactly. It was on YouTube that I found, so I didn't need the manuals, quite frankly. But later on, I also saw that there was a small QR code. I simply scanned. I had a digital version of the English versions. I didn't even need the hard copies. So the truth is that there are just so many elements of life on a day-to-day consistent basis that technology is, the way to go. Everything is a scan, a QR code, and input a touch button here, and you can find resources. There are so many YouTubers whose entire agenda is to find things and come and show you how they work.
Oh yes. No, I mean, I remember when I had issues with my iPhone. I think it dropped in water. I mean, just briefly, but it destabilized it. And I went on YouTube and I was told to put it in a bag of rice for 24 hours. But it woke up after that.
That's
I mean,
right.
it was a real aha thing for me.
That's right. All right, thank you. I mean, it's been a phenomenal conversation. You know me, I'm a stickler for time. I want to respect people's time. And we're coming, we just have a few minutes left. But I want to say again, thank you to every single one who has registered and have been watching across the different platforms that we're streaming. And to reiterate that what we do with the Endgame program is to give you the strategies and tools that help you to reposition yourself. And all we're doing is to create the life for you whereby you're purposeful, you're impactful, you are creating and dispensing value into your old age. We're trying to build a community where we don't have people who have, in quote, retired, and all they do is to sit down reading newspapers and paying attention to everything happening on their street. We want the people that are being highly sought after because they are still able to create value. And today's conversation is really to say that part of your ability to still be that person who is relevant per time into the next 10, 20, 30 years and more is that you must be abreast of the technology and how you leverage it to enable your own life first. And then, of course, use it to create those tools that help you to succeed later. Somebody is saying so depressing. It's very depressing if that's the kind of life you end up living. But if you can equip yourself now, I promise you, I mean, we see some of these people and they're looking like outliers, right? They're looking like outliers because everybody around them is wondering, this guy is 80 something, he's still all over the place. This woman is 90 something and she's still sitting on this board and doing this and doing that, right? So let us please be mindful and intentional to take the tips we've learned today. If you have to get a consultant, a digital coach, please link up with ABC or find someone else. It mustn't be him, but if it's him, hey, great. But don't be too proud to admit that you need to upskill yourself to embrace fully. If you know that your own concept of being digitally savvy is that you're on Facebook, which you never go to, you use WhatsApp to post and chat, and maybe I don't even know what else to say, but you know Uber is like let's leave Uber itself. You don't even know that there are other platforms like Bolt and what are their names? There's so many of them. You don't even know, and you can't navigate such simple things. You know that when you go to the airport, you start looking around to see if there's someone else looking like you that can come and help. There is a problem. And we're saying that will not help you to be fully independent and fully value adding as you get older. So please upskill, take the advantage of the learning today, sit down and do a self-assessment and be honest to yourself about where you are so that you can do better. I want to just leave a final word, and it's to say this. I know that many of us are very successful in our professions. I know that we've done well, we've worked hard, we've risen. Some of us are running mega organizations. However, your ability to sustain a certain level of influence and impact, these things we're saying, they're very important.
Yeah.
Part of what we teach you on Endgame is to define and create a narrative around who you are outside of your job, because your job is the one platform that gives you that respectability and, whatever you call it at this point in time. But one day it won't be there anymore. Who will you be at that time? And how relevant will you be in the scheme of the evolution of technology? That's why today's conversation was important. I want to invite you finally, if you haven't connected already, you can check on my Instagram page, all my profiles and my platforms actually, and look out for the Endgame program. We're having the next stream. So we have one that is running in Toronto. So if you're in the US or in North America and you want to join us, we have one that is running on the 15th of July. So you can click on the link in my bio and register for that. But if you are in Nigeria or in West Africa and you want to connect with us, the next stream that will be happening in Nigeria will be happening from September the 15th. And it's a 6-week program where we do a deep dive into so many things that just dimension who you are from a very different perspective and give you the tools to help you to move forward. Many of you have been trying to figure out, why am I so dissatisfied even though I have the money, I have the office, I have the position and all that? Something is niggling inside you, telling you there's so much more. I assure you there is more. And the end game is to help you to bring that out, to birth it and run with it with the rest of your life. Is there a digital version? Yes, there is. Endgame is a hybrid event. So even if you're not able to attend in person, we have a hybrid alternative. So you can log in virtually. That said, I want to say a very big thank you again to every single one who has been here. Thank you so much, DBC, for all your insights. Thank you so much, my sister Inyang, phenomenal work that you do as the retirement queen. And thank you to all of you who have joined from different countries of the world. We would put out information as to when our next webinar will be holding. And if there are certain topics that you think that as you're getting older, these are areas of concern, please feel free to drop a message in my DM, send me, on any platform, send me a message and we can curate something around that. This is not about any one person. It's about, like I said, building the community of enabled people. Because I promise you, I have zero plan to be sitting down with you reading newspapers when I can be fine from one board meeting to the other. Okay? All right. Tosin, you're asking if there's a recorded version. Yes, ma'am, it's recorded. It will be up on all my platforms on my YouTube channel, and I'm sure DBC and Ian would also put it up on their platforms. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. This is me signing out. So you want to just add anything before we go?
So my thing is, don't just retire. Make sure that you are in a time of your life that you want to refire, and technology is what is going to get you there.
Excellent.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Take care. God bless
you, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.